From humble beginnings to becoming one of the most recognizable faces in entertainment, Steve Harvey's journey is nothing short of inspiring. But beyond the spotlight, what does life look like for the king of comedy turned media mogul? In this video, we take you inside Steve Harvey's luxurious lifestyle, from his stunning multi-million-dollar estates and designer wardrobe to his fleet of luxury cars and globe-trotting adventures. Every element reflects a man who turned grit and charisma into an empire. We'll also explore the milestones that shaped his remarkable career, his smart business ventures, and his estimated net worth in 2025. This isn't just a look at celebrity wealth. It's a story of reinvention, resilience, and relentless hustle. Before the sharp suits and sold-out arenas, Steve Harvey was Broderick Stephen Harvey, a name as long as the odds stacked against him. Born on January 17, 1957, in the coal mining town of Welch, West Virginia, Steve entered the world with little more than grit in his lungs and ambition in his bones. He was the youngest of 5 children in a working-class household where survival was a daily ritual and dignity came from hard work. His father, Jesse Harvey, worked as a coal miner, a man whose hands bore the stories of sacrifice, whose silence spoke volumes about perseverance. His mother, Eloise Vera, was a Sunday school teacher, the emotional backbone of the family, and Steve's earliest introduction to faith, discipline, and storytelling. Religion was not a performance in the Harvey household, it was the foundation. Prayers were mandatory, church attendance was non-negotiable, and dreams were whispered into pillows at night. Though Steve was born in West Virginia, the family later relocated to Cleveland, Ohio, where he would spend the bulk of his formative years. In Cleveland's East Side neighborhoods, he learned early how to read a room, whether it was a classroom, a church pew, or a street corner. The boy who once stuttered when called upon in school would grow into a man whose voice would one day echo across the world. The 1960s and 70s were volatile years in America, and young Steve came of age amidst segregation, civil rights protests, and economic hardship. But even in the face of adversity, he showed signs of the trademark wit and observational genius that would later define his comedy. It wasn't fame he was chasing, it was identity, a sense of belonging, a way to rewrite his story. From the coal dust of West Virginia to the cracked sidewalks of Cleveland, Steve Harvey's early life was no red carpet. It was a rough road. But it's on those roads, as we'll see, that legends are carved. Steve Harvey's path through education was anything but straight. After relocating to Cleveland, he attended Glenville High School, where he showed more potential in charisma than in academics. He wasn't the kid acing exams or stacking up scholarships. He was the kid making the classroom laugh, quietly molding a gift that would later pay dividends far beyond any diploma. After high school, Steve enrolled in Kent State University and later West Virginia University. But formal education never truly fit him. He drifted between majors, eventually dropping out. He wasn't running from knowledge. He was running toward purpose, even if he didn't fully understand what it looked like yet. The traditional path wasn't built for someone like Steve, whose wisdom would come not from textbooks, but from life itself. In the years that followed, Steve cycled through a string of blue-collar jobs: auto worker, carpet cleaner, insurance salesman, even a boxer. Each role was a stepping stone in a life that was being shaped by trial, error, and sheer necessity. But even in these labor-intensive jobs, he found opportunities to entertain, connect, and observe, the very foundation of his later comedy. What set Steve apart wasn't just his resilience, it was his ability to draw influence from the world around him. He idolized Richard Pryor, whose raw honesty and biting wit showed him that pain could be powerful when channeled through a microphone. Eddie Murphy's early success lit another spark, showing a young, broke man from Cleveland that laughter could be a career. But perhaps Steve's greatest influence came from home. His mother's unwavering faith in God and his father's work ethic left an imprint deeper than any professor's lecture. They didn't raise him to be famous. They raised him to be fearless. These early years taught Steve Harvey one thing: the world may not hand you a microphone, but if you find your voice, you can build your own stage. Steve Harvey's journey into comedy didn't begin with fanfare. It began with fear. Not stage fright, but the fear of failing at everything else. After bouncing between jobs and struggling to make ends meet, he found himself at a crossroads in the mid-1980s. With little left to lose and a growing urge to try something different, Steve stepped onto a comedy stage for the first time in 1985 at a small club in Cleveland. The room was dimly lit, the crowd indifferent, but something clicked. The laughter wasn't just noise, it was fuel. In those early days, he hit the stand-up circuit hard. He toured dive bars, hole-in-the-wall venues, and small-time comedy clubs across the Midwest and Southeast. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. There were nights he crushed and nights he bombed. But he kept going, driven by a hunger to refine his voice and survive in a world that offered no guarantees. During this time, Steve was also living out of his 1976 Ford Tempo. For 3 years, he was technically homeless, sleeping in his car, bathing at gas stations, and scraping together meals however he could. But he never let go of the mic. The stage, no matter how small, gave him purpose. And little by little, the universe began to pay attention. The real turning point came when he landed the role of host on Showtime at the Apollo in the early 90s. The legendary Harlem Theater was notorious for its tough crowds and brutal honesty. But Steve thrived in it. He brought warmth, wit, and a street-smart rhythm that resonated with audiences across the country. Week after week, he proved he wasn't just a comic. He was a commanding presence. That gig opened doors. People in the industry started to take notice. More bookings came and television producers began circling. But more importantly, Steve had proven to himself that he belonged. The kid who once stuttered, who once doubted if he'd ever be heard, now had a stage that wouldn't forget his name. His big break wasn't a moment, it was a marathon. And Steve Harvey had just found his stride. With his voice now echoing from the legendary stage of the Apollo Theater, Steve Harvey was no longer just chasing the spotlight. He was commanding it. Hosting Showtime at the Apollo from 1993 to 2000 gave him national visibility and established his reputation as a performer who could read any room and keep any crowd captivated. He brought both humor and heart to the stage, proving he could handle pressure with poise and punchlines. But it was television that truly launched Steve into the mainstream. In 1996, he created and starred in The Steve Harvey Show, a sitcom that ran for 6 seasons on the WB network. As Steve Hightower, a former R&B singer turned high school music teacher, Harvey struck gold. The show was more than just a comedy. It was a cultural bridge. It highlighted Black excellence, intergenerational mentorship, and the daily realities of urban life, all through the lens of laughter. His chemistry with co-star Cedric the Entertainer became the heartbeat of the series, planting the seeds for one of the most iconic comedy partnerships in decades. At the turn of the millennium, Steve's star soared even higher with the original Kings of Comedy tour in 2000. Alongside Cedric, D.L. Hewley, and the late Bernie Mac, Steve hit the stage in what became one of the highest-grossing comedy tours of all time. Directed by Spike Lee and later turned into a hit documentary film, the tour captured black comedy at its peak, raw, unapologetic, and razor-sharp. Steve's performance stood out for its down-to-earth wisdom and connection to everyday struggles. He wasn't just funny, he was relatable. By the early 2000s, Steve Harvey had transformed from a road comic to a media force. His face was familiar, his voice unmistakable, and his name synonymous with authenticity. But unlike others who rose fast and faded, Steve kept evolving. Not just chasing fame, but reshaping it. What made Steve's rise unique wasn't just the platforms he stood on, but the people he brought with him. His comedy didn't mock, it uplifted. His stories didn't just entertain, they healed. He had found his audience, and more importantly, he had found his purpose. And this, as it turns out, was only the beginning. By the time the 2010s rolled around, Steve Harvey had evolved from a stand-up sensation into one of the most versatile and bankable personalities in entertainment. His ability to move fluidly between comedy, hosting, acting, and even relationship advice positioned him in a league of his own, not just as a celebrity, but as a brand. One of the crown jewels in his career is undoubtedly Family Feud. When Steve took over as host in 2010, the show was fading in popularity. But his charisma, quick wit, and uniquely expressive reactions brought new life to the format. He didn't just read questions. He turned awkward moments into viral clips, injected humor into silence, and made families feel like celebrities themselves. Ratings soared. The show became a cultural staple once again, pulling in millions of viewers and dominating daytime television. His role even expanded internationally with Celebrity Family Feud and African editions of the show, cementing his status as a global icon. Beyond the stage and screen, Steve's influence spilled into the literary world. In 2009, he released Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, a relationship advice book that combined humor with tough love. The book became a #1 New York Times bestseller and inspired the hit 2012 film Think Like a Man, followed by a successful sequel. His insights on love, masculinity, and relationships resonated with both men and women, proving that behind the jokes was a man who deeply understood human connection. His radio show, The Steve Harvey Morning Show, has run for over 2 decades, blending comedy, politics, spiritual messages, and community dialogue. It's not just a show, it's a daily ritual for millions, particularly in Black households across America. Steve used the mic not just to entertain, but to empower. Awards followed, but for Steve, the recognition was always secondary to the mission. Still, his trophy shelf speaks volumes. Multiple Daytime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Game Show Host, NAACP Image Awards, and a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. In 2013, he made history as the first host to simultaneously have a game show, a daytime talk show, and a nationally syndicated radio show. Even missteps became milestones. When Steve mistakenly announced the wrong Miss Universe winner in 2015, the world held its breath. But what could have been a career-ending gaffe turned into a redemption arc. He took full responsibility, returned to host future pageants, and even earned praise for his grace under pressure. Throughout his career, Steve has built a reputation on consistency, reinvention, and relevance. He isn't confined to one medium, one audience, or one era. Whether he's giving dating advice, cracking jokes on stage, or interviewing guests with depth and dignity, he delivers with a trademark mix of heart and humor. This chapter of his career wasn't just about success, it was about scale. Steve Harvey became more than a name, he became a standard. While Steve Harvey's on-screen career kept him in the public eye, his entrepreneurial pursuits were quietly building an empire behind the scenes. Steve didn't just want to be a talent, he wanted ownership. And over time, he built a business portfolio as dynamic as his personality. At the core of his business empire is Steve Harvey Global, SHG, a multi-platform company launched in 2017. SHG oversees his production, digital content, radio, and branding interests. It also owns the rights to international editions of Family Feud, including those in South Africa and Ghana, a strategic move that didn't just extend his brand globally, but also gave him control over the show's legacy in emerging markets. For Harvey, it wasn't just about being on TV. It was about owning the shows people watched. His media company also created Vault Empowers, an initiative centered on wealth building and personal development for entrepreneurs and aspiring leaders, particularly within underrepresented communities. Events like the Vault Conference bring together high-profile business minds and provide tools for generational wealth, a concept Steve is deeply passionate about, given his own journey from poverty to prosperity. But Steve didn't stop at media and education. His investment footprint includes ventures in tech, fashion, and luxury goods. He's worked with high-end menswear designers to create his own fashion lines, curated grooming products for Black men, and partnered with international brands looking to tap into his influence and authenticity. His iconic style, especially those sharp suits and hats, evolved from a personal aesthetic into a recognizable brand all its own. He also launched the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation, which focuses on youth outreach, education, and mentorship. The organization runs programs like the Boys Mentoring Weekend and Girls Who Rule the World, helping underserved youth develop confidence, leadership skills, and a sense of purpose. In every venture, Steve Harvey brings more than just a name. He brings a vision, a commitment to empowerment, excellence, and legacy. His business empire isn't just lucrative, it's intentional, aimed at helping others build their own tables rather than waiting for a seat at someone else's. By 2025, Steve Harvey's lifestyle is the embodiment of hard-earned elegance. It's not just wealth on display, it's the careful curation of comfort, legacy, and style. Every space he inhabits, every possession he owns, is a chapter in the story of a man who refused to settle for less. At the heart of his real estate portfolio is his stunning Atlanta estate, a sprawling 17-acre property nestled in the exclusive Buckhead neighborhood. The mansion, once owned by filmmaker Tyler Perry, features 35,000 square feet of sheer opulence, including a grand foyer, Versailles-style chandeliers, a two-story library, and a private movie theater. Outside, manicured gardens, a swimming pool, and a fully equipped outdoor kitchen stretch across the landscaped grounds. The estate reflects Steve's southern roots and love for classical design, bold, stately, and unmistakably regal. But Atlanta is just the anchor. When in Los Angeles, Steve resides in a luxurious Beverly Park home, perched in one of the city's most secure gated communities. Here, his life moves in sync with Hollywood's pulse: stylish dinner parties, business meetings with media executives, and quiet nights overlooking the twinkling city skyline. This home, outfitted with modern finishes and expansive glass walls, mirrors his West Coast hustle: sleek, contemporary, and high-performing. Steve's reach extends beyond U.S. borders. He's made significant real estate investments in Dubai, a city that mirrors his appreciation for global flair and next-level luxury. He's also expressed deep personal and philanthropic ties to Ghana, where he's explored property opportunities and supported educational initiatives. His global real estate holdings aren't just about wealth. They reflect his expanding influence and cultural curiosity. Inside each of his homes, Harvey's signature aesthetic is unmistakable. Think custom-made furnishings, gold and mahogany finishes, and walk-in closets filled with tailored suits, exotic leathers, and designer shoes. His interior spaces blend vintage glamour with masculine elegance, a nod to both his upbringing and his modern sophistication. Steve Harvey's lifestyle in 2025 is not about excess, it's about excellence. He lives with intention, surrounding himself with spaces that inspire, empower, and honor the road he traveled to get here. Every home is a retreat. Every detail is a reminder. The man who once lived in his car now lives in castles. Steve Harvey doesn't just drive, he arrives. His taste in automobiles is as sharp and precise as his wardrobe, blending power, prestige, and personal flair. In 2025, his car collection is a symbol not only of luxury, but of a journey from the backseat of struggle to the driver's seat of success. At the top of his collection is the Rolls-Royce Phantom, a vehicle synonymous with class and confidence. With a custom matte black finish, whisper quiet ride, and handcrafted interior details, it's not just a car, it's a rolling throne room. Steve often refers to it as his Sunday driver, the vehicle he uses when he wants to make a statement without saying a word. Equally impressive is his Bentley Mulsanne, known for its seamless blend of British elegance and American muscle. It's a nod to Steve's transcontinental appeal, traditional yet unstoppable. Inside, the cabin is wrapped in buttery leather and exotic wood trims, echoing the interiors of his most lavish homes. Then there's the Ford F-150 Raptor, modified and customized to Steve's liking. This beast of a truck speaks to the blue-collar roots he never forgot. It's rugged, reliable, and unapologetically masculine, much like Harvey himself. Of course, a man who lives across multiple time zones needs more than horsepower on the ground. Enter his Gulfstream G4 private jet, a flying suite designed for business and comfort. Outfitted with plush leather seating, Wi-Fi, custom wood cabinetry, and branding elements from his Steve Harvey global empire, the jet is both a travel tool and a floating office. It allows him to crisscross between continents, from LA to Atlanta, Dubai to Johannesburg, with ease and elegance. The jet isn't just a convenience, it's a necessity in a life filled with speaking engagements, TV shoots, business deals, and family obligations. It's freedom on demand, and for Steve, that freedom was hard-earned. His vehicles, whether on the road or in the sky, represent more than wealth. They're reflections of his values: mobility, mastery, and meaning. Each one tells a story, not just of where he is, but of where he came from, and how far he's willing to go. Steve Harvey has never been a politician, but he's always had a voice, and he's never been afraid to use it. Over the years, he's stepped into political conversations not as an activist or partisan, but as a man shaped by experience, community, and conviction. At his core, Steve believes in empowerment over ideology. His public stances are rooted in values: education, mentorship, family structure, and economic mobility, particularly within underserved Black communities. He often speaks about the importance of teaching financial literacy, personal responsibility, and leadership to young men of color, not just as ideals, but as survival skills. One of his most controversial moments came in 2017, when he met with then-President Donald Trump during the transition into office. The intention, Steve said, was to discuss urban development and inner-city challenges alongside Dr. Ben Carson. But the backlash was swift. Many critics accused him of lending credibility to a divisive administration. Steve later clarified that the meeting was nonpartisan and rooted in his desire to be part of the solution, not the spectacle. "I didn't go as a Republican or Democrat," he said. "I went as a man who cares." Despite the criticism, the experience became a turning point for Steve, one that reshaped how he approaches public advocacy. Since then, he's focused more on action than alignment, doubling down on his mentorship programs and community outreach instead of attaching himself to political parties or movements. He has also been vocal on issues like police brutality, systemic racism, and educational inequality. But rather than offering empty sound bites, Steve uses his platform to elevate conversations around healing, accountability, and generational progress. In 2025, Steve Harvey's political stance remains clear: help those who need it, speak for those who feel unheard, and lead from a place of integrity. His allegiance isn't to red or blue. It's to those still trying to break generational cycles, just like he once did. At the center of Steve Harvey's whirlwind life is a deeply rooted belief system that grounds everything he does. His success, as he often says, isn't just the result of hard work. It's a product of divine alignment. Faith isn't an accessory in his life, it's the engine. Raised by a devout Christian mother, Steve's connection to God has never wavered. In interviews, on stage, and even between commercial breaks, he credits his achievements to grace and purpose. Prayer is part of his daily rhythm. He begins each morning in quiet reflection, expressing gratitude and asking for guidance. His favorite scripture, Proverbs 3:5-6, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart," is a personal mantra he repeats often. But Steve's belief system goes beyond religion. It's also steeped in the power of visualization and self-discipline. He's a firm believer in vision boards, a practice he preaches about relentlessly. He attributes much of his transformation, from homelessness to multi-millionaire, to writing down his goals and speaking them into existence. "You have not because you ask not," he says, echoing both biblical principle and manifestation philosophy. Physically, Steve takes wellness seriously, especially as he moves through his late 60s with high energy and stamina. His routine includes light strength training, stretching, and a focus on clean eating. He practices intermittent fasting, drinks gallons of water a day, and leans into natural supplements and vitamins to keep his body aligned with his mind. He also prioritizes emotional health. In a business full of noise and opinion, Steve has learned to protect his peace. He avoids drama, guards his circle, and keeps his mental clarity sharp through solitude, meditation, and long walks. The flash of fame may surround him, but his focus is always inward. Steve Harvey's philosophy in 2025 is a fusion of faith, focus, and frequency. He believes in showing up prepared, staying prayed up, and letting his work, not his words, define his worth. He lives by a simple rule: speak it, believe it, work for it. Because for Steve, success isn't just what you achieve, it's who you become along the way. Behind every powerful man is a deeper story, one of love, loyalty, and the people who keep him grounded. For Steve Harvey, that story begins and ends with Marjorie Harvey. In a world where relationships are often fleeting and surface level, their connection stands out as something profound and enduring. Steve met Marjorie in the late 80s, but it wasn't until years later that their paths aligned for good. They married in 2007, blending not just families, but entire lifetimes of experience. Steve has often said that Marjorie changed his life, not just emotionally, but spiritually and stylistically. She redefined how he saw himself, introduced him to global travel, high fashion, and luxury living, and helped him move with the grace of a man finally at peace. Together, they parent a blended family of 7 children, 3 from Steve's previous marriages, 3 from Marjorie's, and 1 they raised together. Though not all biologically his, Steve never uses the term step. In his eyes, they are all his, equally loved, equally protected. Fatherhood has always been one of his most sacred roles. He speaks often about the importance of male guidance, especially for young men growing up without it. His children range from entrepreneurs to entertainers, and Steve takes immense pride in watching them build legacies of their own. Now, a grandfather several times over, Steve's soft side truly emerges when he talks about his grandkids. He lights up when describing family cookouts, holiday traditions, or just quiet moments at home with loved ones. Despite his towering public persona, Steve is surprisingly private when it comes to family, choosing to shield their everyday lives from the media spotlight whenever possible. Marjorie, for her part, is more than just a spouse. She's a fashion icon, philanthropist, and co-pilot in business and life. Together, they travel the world, host charitable events, and mentor young couples. Their dynamic is aspirational. 2 people who uplift each other, both individually powerful yet stronger as a unit. In 2025, the Harveys represent a rare blend of celebrity and stability. For all the cameras, contracts, and global audiences, Steve's truest success is found around the dinner table, with the people who've seen him at his best and loved him through his worst. Most people know Steve Harvey as the sharply dressed host with the signature mustache and lightning-fast comebacks. But behind the fame and flair lies a man with unexpected talents and a surprisingly layered personality. One of Steve's lesser-known passions is fashion design. While the world sees him wearing luxurious suits, few know he's heavily involved in curating many of them. His attention to detail, lapel width, cufflinks, color coordination, is almost obsessive. Over the years, he's worked closely with designers to develop a unique style that blends old-school sophistication with bold modernity. His wardrobe isn't just for show. It's part of his brand, his armor, and in many ways, his art. Off-camera, Steve has a strong culinary side. He's a self-taught grill master who takes great pride in throwing down in the backyard. Whether it's ribs, brisket, or seafood, Harvey's barbecue game is no joke. He's been known to host epic cookouts at his Atlanta estate, where he's both the entertainer and the chef. For him, food isn't just about flavor, it's about fellowship and family. He's also something of a gardening enthusiast, often spending early mornings tending to the greenery on his properties. It's not uncommon to find Steve in casual clothes, sleeves rolled up, pruning hedges, or watering flowers. He says gardening reminds him of life. It requires patience, pruning, and trust in the unseen. Another surprise? Steve has an intense love for motivational literature and philosophy. He devours books on self-improvement, entrepreneurship, and spiritual growth, often quoting authors like Napoleon Hill, T.D. Jakes, and Miles Monroe. He doesn't just consume wisdom, he lives it and passes it on. And perhaps most remarkably, Steve is a mentor behind the scenes for countless up-and-coming entertainers, business owners, and young men who've never stepped in front of a camera. Many of these relationships are never publicized. For Steve, giving back isn't a gesture. It's a quiet obligation rooted in gratitude. In the public eye, he's a star. But in private, Steve Harvey is a Renaissance man. Equal parts thinker, creator, teacher, and soul. Every public figure has moments they'd rather forget. And for Steve Harvey, those moments haven't just tested his reputation. They've tested his resilience. But true to form, He's turned nearly every setback into a stepping stone. Perhaps the most infamous moment of his career came on December 20th, 2015, during the live broadcast of the Miss Universe pageant. With the world watching, Steve mistakenly announced Miss Colombia as the winner, only to correct himself moments later. The real winner was Miss Philippines. The internet exploded. Memes flooded social media, late-night hosts cracked jokes, and Harvey became the punchline of a global error. But what followed was a masterclass in accountability. Steve owned the mistake immediately, offered a heartfelt apology both on air and to the contestants personally, and returned to host future Miss Universe pageants with grace and humility. The incident didn't end his career. It humanized him. And in doing so, it deepened his connection with audiences around the world. Earlier in his journey, Harvey also endured deeply personal challenges, including 2 divorces, one of which led to significant financial strain. At one point, he was reportedly sending nearly 75% of his income in alimony and child support. Coupled with career uncertainty and financial mismanagement, these years took a heavy toll. He often references this period as one of the darkest of his life. He also faced criticism for his 2017 meeting with Donald Trump, which many perceived as a betrayal, particularly in the Black community. While Steve insisted the intention was rooted in community uplift, the backlash was swift and unforgiving. Though he later distanced himself from political involvement, the scars from that moment remained visible for some time. Yet through every misstep, public or private, Steve never disappeared. He recalibrated, refocused, and returned stronger. For a man who's lived in both limelight and low places, the setbacks became something more: fuel. They reminded him, and the world, that even icons are imperfect, and that sometimes falling down is just the first step in standing taller. Steve Harvey's legacy isn't written in awards or broadcast ratings. It's etched in the lives he's touched, the ceilings he's shattered, and the hope he's ignited in people who saw themselves in his story. From humble beginnings in West Virginia to international stardom, Steve's journey is one of transcendence, not just of fame, but of stereotype. He took the archetype of the Black comic and expanded it into a multi-dimensional empire: actor, entrepreneur, author, mentor, and media mogul. In doing so, he paved a path for entertainers to own their brands, tell their stories authentically, and build businesses beyond the spotlight. His voice, literally and figuratively, has become iconic. For over a decade, families across the world have tuned into Family Feud to laugh, connect, and momentarily forget their troubles. His radio show has become a trusted companion for morning commutes, filled with humor, motivation, and spiritual encouragement. Whether he's giving tough love or telling a joke, his delivery is always from the heart. Steve's cultural reach extends far beyond entertainment. Through his mentorship programs, particularly for young Black men, he's created spaces for growth, healing, and transformation. The annual Steve Harvey Mentoring Camp has helped thousands of boys find direction, discipline, and father figures. For many, it's the first time they've been seen, heard, and believed in. He's also played a quiet but powerful role in shaping modern conversations around relationships and personal growth. His best-selling books have sparked national dialogue, especially among women navigating love, self-worth, and empowerment. The phrase "act like a lady, think like a man" became more than a title. It became a cultural reference point. In fashion, he's influenced generations of men to embrace style as a form of self-respect. In business, he's become a case study in longevity and reinvention. And in life, he's proven that age, background, or past mistakes don't have to define your future. Steve Harvey's impact in 2025 is not just about what he's built, but what he's left behind. A blueprint for turning adversity into opportunity, for using laughter to heal, and for walking with purpose, no matter how long the journey. He's not just a man who made it, he's a man who made it matter. From sleeping in a beat-up Ford to soaring above continents in his private jet, Steve Harvey's life is more than a success story. It's a testimony, a roadmap etched in perseverance, proof that with enough faith, fire, and follow-through, it's possible to rewrite your destiny. In 2025, Steve Harvey is not slowing down. He's living at the intersection of purpose and power. balancing boardrooms with barbecues, red carpets with real conversations. His homes are palatial, his wardrobe is timeless, his calendar is packed. But at the heart of it all is a man who remembers every mile of the road it took to get here. He's still telling jokes, still giving advice, still mentoring boys who remind him of himself. But now, he does it all with the wisdom of a man who has learned that true wealth isn't counted in dollars, it's measured in impact. And while his net worth may soar into the hundreds of millions, his value in culture, in community, and in character is immeasurable. What makes Steve Harvey remarkable isn't just his longevity, it's his evolution. He's failed publicly and rebounded gracefully. He's been doubted, misjudged, misunderstood, and kept walking forward. Every chapter of his life, from poverty to prosperity, has been marked by the same unshakable truth. Steve Harvey refuses to be average. So when we look at the lifestyle of Steve Harvey in 2025, the mansions, the jet, the luxury, the legacy, we're not just seeing success. We're seeing what it looks like when a man aligns his talent with his calling, his platform with his principles. And maybe, just maybe, we're seeing a reflection of what's possible. Not just for one man, but for anyone bold enough to believe.